Welcome, UpLevelers. We're in the season of leading through crisis, chaos, and change. And today's guest, Neil Edwards, is going to shed some really important insight and bring an analogy of how to navigate these times. Welcome, Neil, to the UpLevel Podcast.
Happy to be here, Christy, and hopefully I can add some value to the lives of your listeners today, and maybe even for yourself. And I like reciprocity, so I expect I'll get something out of this as well as we dance together.
I have no doubt of that. You know, I'm going to jump right into the first line of your bio. That you feel the solution is profound intimacy. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, specifically building trust or maintaining trust and creating the future we want requires profound intimacy. And what I mean by that is a number of things. First, going below skin deep. A lot of the things that we do in business, in leadership development, in the conversations that we have around human development, around leadership development, have become transactional and check boxes. There's a lot of content and a lot of knowledge out there. The reality is we need to get deeper with ourselves and with each other in ways that we haven't before, in order to create our future, in order to innovate, in order to solve problems, and when I say solve problems, I mean all the problems, from problems in one-on-one interaction between you and I to geopolitical crises. We need to be in different kinds of conversations, and we need to get intimate because we are at, this is a state change in our existence as humans and as a planet. And we're operating as if we have not advanced. And what I mean by that is we have all of these technologies and tools and things that have sped up life and made life easier, but have also made it more complex. Yet we haven't taken intentional steps truly to check our systems of operating with each other.
I love
and to evolve accordingly.
What's an example over the past 4 years, because we know it's been a wild ride for all of humanity, where intimacy has served you?
The intimacy has served me. Well, in 2020, during the pandemic, and then all of the social crises around race relations in the United States blew up. Ultimately with the murder of George Floyd. Having to have conversations with people who see me in a certain way, and setting a stake to stay in conversation with them so people aren't running from the hills, required a different level of connection and trust and humanity to exist inside those conversations. And what it's done for me is it's had me develop some of the deepest and closest friendships that I have ever had. And the deepest intimate relationships in terms of trust and truth-telling, knowing that this person is going to be there. Right? Either if I have to hold them in front of me, or if they have to hold me in front of them, we are not separating. So that's one example.
And I just noticed as you were sharing that, I felt the vulnerability in my own system, in my own body, that it takes such courage for people to be intimate and to stay in those challenging, tough conversations. And you're speaking to the aftermath, what happens when we do have the courage to stay. And I think this is such an important antidote for leading through crisis, chaos, and change.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there were, and I had to be intentional, and those who I really came into relationship around this had to be intentional in designing what it was going to be like. Like, we're going to disagree. Not only that, there's probably going to be cussing and crying and everything in your body wanting to run away or fight. But we are committing to being in a relationship. Having that conversation is not normal. It's an intimate conversation. And so that's an example sort of at a personal level, but that's also true. I've done that in teams as well, either teams I've coached or teams that I've been part.
So then let's take it to that place. So we've got some business leaders listening. How would you direct them to use intimacy as a way to navigate these times?
Mm-hmm. Well, people react to the word intimacy to begin with.
Yeah.
Especially in business, especially business leaders that are concerned about all sorts of compliance and violation complaints that might go to HR. The reality is we humans are meaning-making machines. And so the societies and the families and the systems that we've grown up in and that have socialized us have given us notions about what intimacy is in a very myopic way. So it's really about, let's talk about intimacy and what meaning we make up around that. Because it's already an edgy conversation. And I think in doing that, before getting to other difficult, real world, edgy topics, just holding themselves in that conversation is an important one. Because it opens the door to their ability. It begins to increase their capacity and capability to be with stuff that goes below the surface of the skin. And just dealing with the word intimacy itself does that for people.
I love this. So the first step is designing around the word and the different meanings we all individually put to it. And that itself is a step in the direction of intimacy.
Exactly. And I'll point something out that I didn't create, nor did I make up. And I have to name a book. I hope that's okay. A book that's out there. It's in the public domain. The Trusted Advisor. In it, which a lot of people have read, there is a trust equation, right? And that equation includes credibility, reliability, transparency, and self-orientation. I won't get into what all of those means, but when they talk about transparency, they break it down. And there's two elements to transparency. One is intimacy. This is a business book. One of them is intimacy, and the other one is empathy. But in the business world, it's so difficult to talk about intimacy that gets passed by. It gets blown over, even when they're using the Trusted Advisor as a tool, as a book for conversation about developing trust in business. They skip right over intimacy. It's right there. This is not new.
No, we have it so collapsed in our culture.
It's collapsed. It's collapsed. And so the behavior is to avoid it.
Yeah.
And I'm saying turn toward it.
Brilliant. What are some of the things that's brought you to this moment in your journey that has allowed you to embody vulnerability, intimacy, and be an advocate for it?
Mm-hmm. Some of the things.
Yeah. I know there's many.
Yeah. Well, I'm a systems oriented person. I like to look at the world at multiple levels. I look at systems and I connect dots and I ask the question, what is happening here? What's going on here? Why are we the way we are? Hmm? And energy. Energy brought me here. Most of the Western world is based on the notion of masculine energy or extroversion, hardness, strong man. It has not served us well over time. It's imbalanced. And in balance, then I might say, what does feminine energy look like? And these are just feminine, masculine notions. And so nurturing, the notion of empathy has more feminine energy to it. Caring, love, intimacy, connection. When I look around and I look at marketing, particularly people in the business of leadership development and coaching, and I pay attention to what female coaches talk about and write about in their marketing, there's more use of feminine language and energy, as well as masculine language and energy, especially if it's in the business context. But when I look at what males are putting out, I don't see a lot of feminine energy. I see imbalance. And so I had to do my own reflection around who I am. And what I found was I'm adopted into this world, just like everybody else. And I was marginalizing an aspect of myself that has more feminine energy. The things that I long for in the world, the safety I want, the connection that I want, the peace that I want. And those words weren't really coming out of my mouth. And so I had to do this work myself. And so when you go on my website, and I've done the work, when you go on my website and you see it, the headline says, building trust and creating the future requires profound intimacy. I've gone through this journey. I've reflected on what has been my part in creating the world that we have today, and what is it that I need to do and who do I need to be in order to create something different that's more life-giving for everyone. Because it's just like, where are the grandmothers that are going to talk sense into all this stuff that's going on, right?
Yes.
So
yes,
that's how I got here.
That's how you got here. And your website, and I said this to you before we hit record, it's you can feel it's embodied. It is integrated. It's your truth. It's your way of being in the world. It's not marketing schmarketing is what I said. And it's a great example of what you're talking about, of the masculine and feminine, the divine masculine, feminine coming together.
Yeah.
And so
I had to get, sorry, I had to become more public. People who engage with me professionally as a coaching client or teams, they experienced this with me. The difference was I wasn't being truthful out in the world. Maybe that was too scary for me. Who knows? But what was outside wasn't true on the inside of the relationships that I had. That intimacy was already there.
Well, it's, as I mentioned to you before, it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring you into this topic, because I've been witnessing and observing you and how you be in the world, how you hold yourself, how you hold conversations. And it's everything that you're speaking to. And you mentioned, where are the grandmothers, or where are the aunties? I'm putting that in. So how, like, this feminine energy, how did it get cultivated in you? You said, I did the work. What do you mean by that for folks who they're aware that they're on a cusp that this would serve them?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's always been in me. It's not always been public. So the work for me was to be more genuine, in a public space, in a professional space where I might get judged, and I'm okay with that. But where did this come from? I think because of my upbringing, quite frankly. I have a lot of aunties. My mother was one of 9 sisters.
Wow.
Right. And they raised me. And my grandmother raised me after school. All the cousins went there. And so there was a lot of nurturing in my life. There was a lot of feminine energy. There was masculine energy as well, but the feminine energy, that nurturing, that intimacy was not absent. Right. It was at home. It was in my family. It was in my formative schooling years. And it was also, I believe, a part of my original essence. I always cared about people. Right. I always worried about people. And then I wondered about people. Like, why are some of my friends harming others of my friends? It didn't sit well with me. And so my exploration into my professional life was to find something that would allow me to put my energy into work where I could support other people. It took a long time to find that through coaching and leader development, but it's always been a part of me. This is really just, I would say, perhaps maturation, right? Me coming into myself. And then being able to articulate that and translate it and bring it into the work that I do professionally.
So there's so far 2 antidotes to this leading through the crisis, chaos, and change that I'm hearing. One is intimacy, and the other is balancing the feminine and masculine energy in oneself.
Yes.
What are some tips, tools, practices for balancing the feminine and masculine energy in oneself that you can offer?
Yeah. Slowing down. And what I mean by that is pausing to reflect, right? Reflective practice. And that can look a lot of ways for different people. Some people journal and they reflect on their day or their week. Some people, I'm a coaching supervisor, and that's basically a person that other coaches go to reflect on case studies and cases and things that are going on in their practice. A lot of executives reflect in some ways. They may just have time for themselves to think through things, but they're really thinking, they're feeling. A lot of executives have coaches, they have confidants, but reflective practice is what's needed. And that simply is pausing and reflecting on what has happened, what is happening, what is emerging. Who am I being in this? Is that who I really want to be? Noticing oneself, like, sort of that meta view. Who was I being? Was I being my best? Was that really what I wanted? What was I thinking while I was doing that? Was I doing what I was thinking? Was I aligned with myself, or was I reacting? And what had me do it or not do it? That is crucial. And that's getting below the surface of the skin with oneself. You can do it by yourself, or you can do it with someone who is skilled at it or trained to support you in that. So reflective practice, pausing and getting soulful, getting deep.
So actually on your site, there's the cornerstones of your approach, and pause together is one of the first ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I say that one, I connect with soul. I believe in soul, hold space to create the container to engage. And that's really about reflection. Yeah.
And then the next one is we cross edges together. What do you mean by that? Love that.
Yeah. Well, in systems work, we believe systems in a constant state of emergence. This comes out of the quantum space. Everything's always in motion and always changing. And oftentimes people have difficulty changing or changing themselves or dealing with change that is happening around them. And when we reach those points in life, that's called an edge that you need to cross from the way things are to the way things are going to be. Or it's a territory that you're in for a while, because sometimes you go through a change and it takes a while. So it's either a sharp edge that you cross or a territory that you go through. We cross them together. I support my clients in crossing those edges because that's where people get challenged, and you'll see different behaviors when people are trying to change or change is placed upon them. And those are just signals that there's an edge, and we'll cross it together.
Well, I would say the past 4 years, for many people, it's been a constant edge, edge pushing, edge sitting time.
Yes.
And so even if someone isn't working with a coach, I want to envision, how can you be that witness for a colleague or a direct report or a peer when they're on that edge?
Yeah.
Or if you're sitting on your edge, who could you call in to support you to cross it together, as you're so beautifully describing?
Yeah, I love that. It's so practical. So for the people around you, and I'm speaking to your listeners, people who know you well, they know you at your best. They know you at your worst. When you are in edge territory or you're at an edge, there are certain things that you're going to do. Signals, it's behaviors. You get twitchy. You start laughing a lot. You freak out. You don't want to go out. Whatever it is, the people around you know what these things are.
Yes.
Enroll them to notice you. When you see me doing these things, I need you to name it and notice and name that I'm at an edge, or ask, what's the edge here for me? How can I support you? Right?
I love that. My business partner, Rachel Baldy, and my life partner, they both know I'm at an edge when I'm clearly not breathing because I'm moving really fast, and I get so caught up on the timelines and the work back schedule, and I'm very focused on the organizing and the planning. And so they know, after years of being with me, help me take a deep breath. Or if we're physically together, Mike, give me a hug. It just gets me out of my brain into my body. These little practices that we can definitely design with people to help us go over that edge together more gracefully.
Exactly. Because you could be in edge territory for years, but there are all sorts of little edges along the way, and that people around you can notice if you design the relationship with them and help you cross at a pace that works for you, or in a way that works for you, or just be with you while you take that breath so you can step over yourself in the way that you want.
So helpful. The next one, we dare to disturb.
Yeah. So change and growth requires some discomfort. And so I don't just look at strengths and the light. I look at challenges. I look at nuances and idiosyncrasies and things that we sometimes don't like about ourselves, and we deny it, but it's true. And you need to take a look at it. It's in the shadows, right? So we disturb that way from the inside out in our growth, but we also activate, and we call it disturbance outwardly, which is to go and experiment, to actually challenge the status quo, to go and do something different and disturb a system that's in place, that's out there, that you are a part of, right? In safe ways, but to challenge it. What's an example of that? Well, in the context of work, the world of work, a lot of people see things that could be done different ways, right? Or different process, different way of doing things, shut something down. And they don't feel empowered to do so. Oftentimes, they just don't feel empowered, but they may actually be empowered. They may be inhibiting themselves, right? So this thing that they want to see change, or this statement that they want to make, or this idea that they want to put forward that might upset some people, challenge the way things are. We come up with experiments to go out and actually do that. But it's not just about practicing a new habit. These experiments, because, in most of coaching, you want it to be practical. You want people to go away and do something. These are specific experiments designed to challenge the status quo.
Of both your internal system and the systems you're a part of.
And the systems you're a part of. Yeah. And so that's what we're talking about. And we, where we are avoiding disturbance. And this is a notion out of some of the work I do, organization and relationship systems coaching, which I'm sure you're familiar with. We say, let disturbance be your ally. There's a lot to be learned in disturbance. There's no way we create a future without disturbing things. That just doesn't happen. There's no way innovation happens without disturbing something. So disturbance is good. It's not all bad.
Yeah. And we've been in a 4-year constant state of disturbance because you said at the beginning of our conversation, humanity is at an inflection point. We are co-creating a new way of living, a new way of working, a new way of being.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's important context for folks, to just, it's happening at this pace consistently, the disturbance, because we are evolving.
Yeah. I see this period that we're in, and who knows how long it is, right? Is it 10 years? Is it 50, 100? I don't know. But I see the world that we're in right now and these challenges as a set of intersecting systems of intimate and infinite complexity. We're in it, right? State change. And the way we need to be with each other and the way we need to do the work of life and business is emerging at a faster and faster pace. And sometimes those forces are opposing the forces of stay the same or change. But change is inevitable. But the bottom line is it's all chaotic. It's happening very fast. And there's a lot of intimate connections between all of these systems around us that are changing, which is why I say we need to get more intimate with ourselves so that we can better deal with complexity.
And your next cornerstone, we connect from the inside out, really speaks to that.
Yeah.
Our inner, it's our outer, right? Yeah, look at it. It's all flowing. It's all flowing perfectly, Neil.
I guess I made it up and I'm not making it up at the moment, but I mean, what I'm saying is like, we need to go inside. We need to pause. We need to reflect. We need to get intimate with ourselves. We need to start on the inside. And then we also need to look outward into the systems that we're a part. And we're not a part of one system. We are part of a whole lot of complex intersecting systems that are all changing all at the same time.
And that's why it can feel super intense and overwhelming. And what we want for people is to slow down, do the reflection, get the allies, the resources, do the inner work so that you can navigate this change that we're in. You can navigate it with grace, with confidence, not let it pull you under. And now I'm going into that metaphor because I want to take us into the last cornerstone is we explore shadows and light, which I think is what we're speaking to. Like we do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I'll say about the shadows and light is truth. Because in the shadow space, in the dark space, or the hidden spaces, we have a tendency to kid ourselves or lie to ourselves. And I think that's harmful because when we do that, it disrupts our ability to even trust ourselves, let alone trust others. So it's problematic for building trust and connection and intimacy. We need to get to the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. Truth comes before trust. And people energetically can pick up on it when there is no truth here or there's something missing. So I think we need to be true with ourselves.
We have to have the courage to go to the shadow, to go to the parts in ourselves that we've been avoiding, we haven't brought to the light.
Yeah. And to be able to say, yeah, I don't like that part of me very much, but I still love me.
Yeah.
There are parts of me I don't like, but I love me. Let's look at this part and see, maybe how I can become more skillful or what I need to do to shift that or nurture something that's missing or something like that. But we do need to be truthful about ourselves. And sometimes it requires an objective observer to point it out to you multiple times.
Multiple times. You say it with a big smile on your face. Yep. We need that. We need that.
Yeah.
We need our support systems right now, I think more so than ever. And I started using the analogy of water analogy, because I know another area that you are spending time with executives and leaders on is actually on the water in a sailboat. So let's start with this, the meta view. What is it about sailing that can support people to lead through crisis, chaos, and change?
What is it? Well, there are many it's. So I see sailing this way, and it is a reality. There are many systems that a sailor needs to be aware of in order to safely sail a boat. And those systems are similar to the invisible systems that are around us, right? The air and the wind. Where's it coming from? What's it like? How is it shifting? And it's always shifting. And sometimes there's a lot and sometimes there's a little. Sometimes there's none. Sometimes it's in your face. Sometimes it's at your back and you don't even know it, but it's there. The tides are shifting. You can notice because the water moves, but you can't see it inch by inch, but you know that, hey, tides flooding or tides ebbing. And what impact is that having on me or the system that I'm a part of right now in this moment, and making choices, right? What am I doing with my sails? Who are my crew? What's the emotional energy among the crew right now? How deep is this water? Where can I sail and not sail? When will I hit ground? Where can I anchor? Where will the wind blow me while I'm anchored? What if there's a hole in the boat?
Sailing equals life. Life equals sailing.
Yeah. And so, what are all these markers all over the water? This red can, that green can, the lighthouse over there. What are the things I can see in the distance? Who has the right of way? That big container ship or me, that small motorboat or me? Is my sailboat a motorboat today or is it a sailboat today? What is the horizon we're going at? Which direction do we need to point the boat? But which way would we be moving? Even if we point the boat in this direction, the boat might be going at another angle. So how do we get to point B from point A, given the current, given the wind, given the traffic? And so translating all of these concepts into language that leaders in business and in life can use is very powerful. It's experiential. It gets in the bones and accelerates the learning, and it accelerates the depth of the learning faster, and it sticks. And it also begins to give them a language to use in their day to day. And it's fun. It's nature. I mean, nature teaches us. There's so many answers in nature. So that's generally how I use it. And I've designed some specific, like I can coach on the boat, like a normal coaching session. But I've also designed like half-day experiences that are more involved where, I create certain situations that might mimic situations that leaders are experiencing, particularly those who lead teams, who want to achieve remarkable results, but they cannot do it without others.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
What a brilliant way to bring people together and to have the boat and all of the things you've shared as the analogy for how do we work together? How do we get to our destination? And, when I think about these times we've been living through, it's been rocky waters, it's been stormy waters.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a moment here or there of calm waters, but we've really had to grow our capacity to keep on top of the wave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are times where you need to stop. The water, the wind gets so rough, you need to stop. You need to reset. And there are times where you can actually sail in pretty rough water. Right. But you have to be thoughtful and mindful about it. And I believe one of the ways to get there and perform well is to pause, is to cross edges that scare you. You can get scared on a sailboat to disturb, to like really challenge and problem solve in the moment, actually. To be connected with those around you and be connected with the environment around you. But first you need to be connected with yourself. And you need to be truthful with yourself, or people could die on a sailboat.
Yeah.
Or businesses can fail. People could lose work. A lot of damage can be done through work. So that's why I did it. And it's also just fun. I love the water. I'm an island boy in California.
Yeah. And when did your sailing start? What was that origin story?
The origin story was when I was 10 years old. I haven't been sailing since then, but that's when I decided I wanted to sail. And I spent a lot of times on boats since then, but not as an officially trained sailor. But I was on a beach in the Bahamas, and I was probably like 8 or 9 years old. And it was a private beach at a boutique hotel where my mother worked. And I was hanging out there, and I went on the beach, and there was no one else there except this little small sailboat. It didn't have a keel. This big bulgy thing that's on the bottom of the boat. It's like a sort of a dinghy. But this couple came up, and they had their little baskets and everything. And I watched them do all their stuff and put their stuff in the boat. And then they dragged the boat down the sand, and it left a trail on the sand. And then they went into the water, and they got in, and they put the sails up, and they sailed. And they just kept going and going. And as a boy, I just watched them sail until I couldn't see them anymore. And I have this image in my head of this perpetual wake going over the horizon to some place that they had envisioned. And so this image is just etched in my memory of the beauty of it. The sun was, just slightly above the horizon when they finished. So the sun was sort of going down. And it was that moment I said, I'm going to do that. That's the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And I never had in my mind, I was never restricted to the land as a island dweller. The ocean was mine as well. And you couldn't see the end. And I wanted to, the future is something that I always found myself looking toward and wondering about. So that is the origin story of me being a sailor and me being on the water.
That's beautiful. How long from that time until you actually cultivated the skill? And it sounds like you have your own boat, and now you've created a business out of it, a program out of
it. Let's see, 30 years before it's like, yes, I'm going to start doing this and getting on boats. I don't own a boat, but I have a membership in a club, and I have access to many boats. And that is really important for me because I choose the boat based on the experience I want to have and who I'm taking out and how many people there are. I took a small group of coaches out as a connection opportunity after Thanksgiving, the weekend of Thanksgiving. I just put a call out and said, who wants to go in a coaches group? Who wants to go sailing on the San Francisco Bay? Raise your hand. And we went sailing. And so I could select the boat that worked for the situation. I almost bought a boat and I decided, no, I should not do that.
Less headaches, just better to rent it for sure.
Yeah. Maybe one day when I'm closer to retirement, I'll buy one.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I grew up on Lake Ontario and sailed the little lasers and nutshells, those little tiny boats, and everything that you spoke about, all the lessons. We would dump our boat every day, and all of us fall into the lake, and just remember feeling so much fear every time that happened, because not knowing what was below me, couldn't see the bottom. And I think it really does builds capacity to have those experiences, and to know we got back on the boat, we got the mast back up, our team was able to, get us back to shore. And there's so many good lessons. And I want to offer folks who are listening is, what's their version of sailing? Maybe it's not boating, maybe it's something else. Maybe they paint, they create art. And how is that a metaphor for the times that we're living through and how they can grow themselves? So yes. I want to offer that.
Yeah, there are many vehicles to do the same thing, whether it's a skill in the fine arts or something else in nature, in the mountains, in climbing in the hills. There are all sorts of ways you can do this in nature, and sailing is one.
So there's been so many nuggets of wisdom, Neil, and we went through your cornerstones, and then the first two of intimacy and balancing the masculine and feminine. And then the third one that I'm going to pull from all of this piece is embodiment. There's something really important about finding practices that help us be more embodied, more in a physical practice, so that we can connect the mind, the heart, the body, and use all of our intelligence. Because, I think one of the things that we've been spending a lot of time up in the head, up in the brain, and we're wanting to drop down into the heart and into other parts of the vessel, if you will.
Yes. One of the things I point out in that intimacy cornerstone is movement, right? It's like, and that speaks to the soma, moving our body or having movement around us in nature, to really embody the learning, to really get to know ourselves. We need to embody all things that we're doing in order for learning to happen. I mean, just think about a baby learning to do things. They embody everything, right? Embodiment is crucial. And so that's what had me go, oh, okay, I need to take this into the world that I enjoy of sailing, because it's only going to be a catalyst. So embodiment is absolutely a catalyst.
What are some final words for today that you have for our listeners around leading through crisis, chaos, and change?
One of the things that I've learned in the context of intimacy is getting clear on giving and receiving, serving, right? Taking, right? And what's different about each, and what position or role are you in any given moment? Are you giving or are you receiving? When do you serve? Right? Meaning, when do you do something that you don't necessarily want to do, but you're serving for the pleasure or the needs or wants of someone else? Sometimes we need to serve. Sometimes we need to be served. Some people cannot receive.
Yeah.
Like, really notice that. I don't want help. Don't help me. I'm going to do it myself. To really just receive is an intimate act. And if that's not happening in a reciprocal way in your life, take a deeper look. Giving and receiving needs to happen.
And that will help balance the feminine and masculine energy, right? Just
Absolutely.
infinity loop right there that you're speaking to.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. There's so much wisdom from you, Neil Edwards. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of it with us today. I know there's much more to go. How can people stay connected to you? Maybe get out on the boat and do this great work with you?
Yeah. Well, you can get connected with me through my website, neiledwardscoaching.com. I'm also at LinkedIn. So that's the LinkedIn domain, nedwards07 is how you can find me, or you can just search for me. My email is easy as well, neil@neiledwardscoaching.com. But the website and LinkedIn are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. I'd love it if people connect. You can see what I've been putting out in content lately. And if you want to get on the boat, reach out. I would be happy to do it. We can do a straight coaching session, or we can go into a larger experience. I'm doing it right now on the San Francisco Bay. So if you don't live in San Francisco, you'll have to find your way, or that area, you'll have to find your way there. If you do live in the area, it's really easy. The sailing is out of Sausalito, which is in Marin County.
Oh, that would be such a treat. Thank you so much for saying yes to this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure. And, for everything I've shared today, it's certainly I've walked the road myself and done the integration, but it's also from the teachings of many before me. Many, many before me. So I honor them as well.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Christy.